check out this Xbox controller from a galaxy far, far away. We'll talk about some titles coming to Game Pass soon that you won't want to miss. And Microsoft has turned an Xbox disaster into a pretty cool product. Let's discuss. So as part of the 20th anniversary of Xbox, Microsoft has released a 6-part documentary titled Power On: The Story of Xbox. It's available now for free on YouTube, and it's really, really interesting. When they first showed this off at the 20th anniversary showcase, I was a little skeptical. I was like, okay, is this gonna be some sort of Xbox propaganda, or what's this gonna look like, you know? But it turns out they're really covering every little thing when it comes to the history of Xbox and the different generations. They're covering the highs, all the hype from the launches and the good old days of the 360, and they're covering some of the lows, which I'm surprised about, the struggles to even launch Xbox in the first place, so it makes for a really cool story. Dean Takahashi, who is a journalist and has written some books about Xbox, sat down with Tina Summerford, who is the executive producer of the Xbox documentary and also an executive of Microsoft, and she had some pretty interesting things to say about the documentary. So like I said, as the documentary is right now, it's in 6 parts and it covers everything from the OG Xbox, the Xbox 360, the One, a little bit of the Series X and S, a little bit of the future, and also the highs and lows that went along in between those times. But the initial pitch, as she was saying in this interview, was that it was supposed to be only a 45 to 60 minute long video about just the original Xbox. But the more they kept talking internally, they were thinking, oh, there's just so much more that we can share now, and there's just so much history in these 20 years that would be an exciting story to tell, which is what ultimately led for it to be extended into 6 episodes. Another thing I really like about the series is how straight up and honest and frank a lot of the participants are in terms of their interviews. And Tina Summerford, that was something that she was saying, you know, time is just a great tool when it comes to these things, right? When people have moved on from their lives, moved on from other projects, they're more inclined to be honest and share their frank opinions on something that happened 15, 16 years ago, rather than something that they just worked on. And again, that frankness, that honesty is something that made the documentary really great for me. She also talked a little bit about Don Matrick, and he, if you don't know who that is, was the head of Xbox before the Xbox One launched. And this is the first interview that he's done in a very long time. It's the first interview that he's done about Xbox since he left the company. So his inclusion in this documentary was huge, as one of those things that helped him offer his perspective, and then people were also able to offer their perspective and provide more of a complete picture. She goes on to say, yes, hindsight is 2020. We definitely made some mistakes with that Xbox One launch. I won't have any spoilers into the specifics of it, but she also went on to say that time period was something of a learning experience for them. They learned how passionate the community was, saying that it wasn't a hardware issue, it was an appetite for something that Xbox wasn't delivering at the time, which is an interesting perspective and very sobering, honestly, that they were able to own up to the mistakes of that launch period of that Xbox One generation. So if you haven't watched it yet, the documentary is called Power On: The Story of Xbox. It's free, you can watch it now on YouTube. Speaking of the Red Ring of Death, the Red Ring of Death, if you don't know, has a whole episode in that documentary I was just talking about. It's episode 5, and they go into some really nitty-gritty details of that whole debacle. Now, if you don't remember, the Red Ring of Death was basically just a mass hardware failure that occurred during the Xbox 360 era. Basically, your 360 would get this Red Ring of Death. It would blink red, and your Xbox just straight up wouldn't work. And at the time, it happened to one of my friends, and I was like, man, that sucks. But it's also kind of funny. I was like making fun of him. But not even 1 or 2 weeks later, it happened to me. And it was a huge bummer. It was a huge bummer. And they had this whole program where you could ship in your Xbox to the Microsoft headquarters and they would repair it for you and send it back. I ended up getting mine back, but it wasn't really mine. They sent me a console and a note saying that they couldn't fix my original console for whatever reason, so they just gave me a model that was exactly like it, but new. It was a very interesting time in console gaming, and it was a dark time for sure. Eventually, they came out with this documentary, and they talked about how it cost them over $1 billion in terms of repair cost and lost sales. It was a whole thing. But now, to commemorate that really dark yet funny time in gaming, they've come out with this poster. Yes, the Red Ring of Death poster runs for about $24.99 and you can buy it now. I don't know if the sales of this are really gonna make up for those $1 billion they lost all the way back then, but hey, it's a start, and it's just so funny to me that it's become a joke now. It's become a joke, it's become a meme, it's become just a funny story that we, us gamers, tell each other. I think everyone who owned an Xbox at that time has some sort of Red Ring of Death story, whether it happened to them, or it happened to a friend, or it happened to someone they knew. But now it's just a joke that we can all laugh at and make products of and sell and profit off of it. And man, I really can't even imagine what would happen now if the Red Ring of Death happened now, but for the current gen consoles, if there was just mass failures of the Series X and the Series S consoles. Can you imagine how bad that would look for Xbox? And at the time, Xbox was just dominating the console wars, so they had a little bit of leeway when it came to public opinion. But can you imagine now if that happened, how they would be dragged on Twitter, how they would be dragged on every other social media site? It would be crazy. So I've talked a little bit about this before, but December is a really, really awesome month for Game Pass subscribers. Obviously, we got Halo Infinite, we have Stardew Valley, great game. We also have Among Us, which came out today, I think. I just installed it right now. And Among Us, I'm a little bit sick of, everyone was playing it, streaming it, and it became this cultural phenomenon. But it's nice having an iconic, instantly recognizable title on the service. I think that's really good just for the clout purposes. Another game I'm interested in trying is Lake. When this came out, I had my eye on it because my wife was saying, oh, this game looks really awesome, it looks really cozy, it looks really relaxing. It's a game where it takes place in the 80s and you are living in the big city and you get an invite to go back to this town and you basically become a male woman, and it's just like a slice of life, relaxing, cozy game. But when it came out, a lot of people were in the reviews section of the Microsoft Store saying that it was buggy. It was super, super buggy. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll wait until this goes on sale, or it comes to Game Pass, and it's coming to Game Pass soon. I think by the time this video comes out, it will be out. Mortal Kombat 11 is also going to be coming out on Game Pass as well, and that's super exciting to me. I really appreciated Mortal Kombat 11 versus Mortal Kombat X or 10, because the combos were just getting ridiculous in Mortal Kombat 10. I like the DLC characters, Predator, Alien, the iconic slasher ones, Jason, Freddy, but the combos were getting seriously out of hand. You don't see that as much in Mortal Kombat 11, and Mortal Kombat 11 also has a really interesting customization feature that is pretty robust and I really enjoy. The Gunk is also coming on December 16th, so that's tomorrow. It should be out by the time this video comes out, but this title just looks really interesting to me. I've talked about it a couple times before, but it just, like I've said a million times in the past, doesn't seem like a game that you would see on Xbox. Third-person, action-adventure, puzzle-solving kind of deal. It looks cool. I like the concept. I'm here for it. I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of this. Now, while the Xbox Series controllers, they're not as fancy as PlayStation 5, the DualSense technology, but they have been killing it in terms of their custom designs and their special editions, I think. Now, last year, to celebrate the premiere of The Mandalorian Season 2, which I'm in, by the way, I'll tell you that story a little bit later, they had a controller for Mando and they had a controller for Baby Yoda. This year, Razer has put out a Boba Fett controller to celebrate the premiere of the Book of Boba Fett on Disney+. And honestly, this looks sick. Now, there are not a lot of characters whose look is as iconic as Boba Fett. Argue about his place in the overall Star Wars universe all you want, but his look, as it is, the armor, the color scheme, it's instantly recognizable, and they capture that beautifully with this controller. The design is predominantly his helmet, and I really enjoy how they kind of showcase the wear of his armor on the mask. It's a little bit chipped, it's a little bit rugged. It's not smooth and clean like the last year's Mando Beskar controller. Like I mentioned before, it's being made by Razer. It is a little bit on the pricier side. It's $180, and I don't believe it has any Pro controller characteristics, but it does come with its own magnetic charging stand that matches the controller, and that's pretty cool. The one question I do have about this is that it lists that it has pressure-sensitive triggers. Now, I'm not familiar with Razer's controllers. I've never owned one for the Xbox. Hopefully, I'll be able to unbox one on the channel soon, maybe send one to your boy Ray so I can talk about it a little bit. I don't know, just a suggestion. If you really want one of these, like I said, it's available to be bought right now through the Razer website. I put it in my cart right now, so there doesn't seem to be an availability issue at the moment. If you really want it, like we've seen with all these other Xbox accessories and hardware being scalped and all sorts of craziness happen, the sooner you can get it in your cart and bought, the better. Anyway, guys, that's all the news I have for today. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Ray, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you went on over to Twitter and followed me at StayXboxReady. I'm also doing my first giveaway. That's right, I'm giving an Xbox Series X to one lucky viewer. I'll have more details about that coming up soon, so keep your eyes peeled. We'll see you in the next video, and thanks again for tuning in.